one of the concerns in the capital is the proposal from DCC to basically block all through traffic from this summer, later on this summer. Business raised its head and said, no, hang on a second, you have never done a due diligence on this and how it might affect business. Like you did all your traffic
all the traffic planning,
but not how the small business might be affected. Eamon Ryan has said, get on with it.
Eamon Ryan has said, get on with it. He came out with a strong statement yesterday, threatened to withdraw funds from Dublin City Council under their Pathfinder project funding if Dublin City Council didn't implement their traffic plan in full. And look, this has generated an awful lot of heat latterly because Dublin City Council have been plugging away on this for years, doing their transport studies and this, that and the other. But the general public doesn't notice that until it actually has an effect on the streets. And what's due to happen in August is essentially this pinch point of bus gates on Bachelor's Walk and Aston Quay, the practical effect of which will be to cut off cars from accessing or from going through Dublin city centre. And the City Council thinks this is a great idea. It'll get the buses to run on time. It'll help us build our cycle lanes. And the city centre traders are going, my God, you could wipe us out. City centre retail is struggling mightily compared to your Dundrums and Liffey Valleys. Dublin city centre is wounded economically at the moment post-COVID, and this could be a hammer blow. Now, I think the traders might be overstating it, the Dublin City Council might be overstating it, but it does frustrate me that, why aren't the council listening to businesses?
Because none of them are in business.
Well, I don't know. They're supposed to be on the side of the city's economy. And I think but
there was a very interesting thing overnight about how we have more college-educated cabinet ministers and so on our TDs, blah, blah. Do they reflect the ordinary person? And there's no doubt that in the Dáil we have ordinary people who never went to college who are representing their constituents. That's great. But do you have any business people in the Dáil? Do you have any business people on the council? Well,
listen, a broader conversation, the large preponderance of solicitors and teachers and professions of that sort. And you need greater representation. But look, Dublin City Council has an elected base. There are council members, and that's as democratic as you could ask it to be. They have endorsed the traffic plan, but nobody, either on the council itself or in the sort of technocracy of the city officials, the permanent officials, nobody seems to be listening to business. And in the name of God, why not? If you're not on the side of Dublin City Centre businesses, then whose side are you on? You are the City Council.
Now, they got 3,000 submissions when they looked for public consultation, and they say 80% were enthusiastic about their plans to block off Dublin City.
Yeah, and Eamon Ryan referenced that yesterday. He said there was overwhelming public support. Now, that is a huge stretch. I mean, that is just not the case. They received 3,000 submissions when they did their public consultation, and they said that they split 80% in favour, and they called that overwhelming public support. But sure, there's plenty of flaws in that methodology. It's just not true. And if you ask members of the general public, they're generally unaware of, the consequences of these changes until they come in.
Now, he had a go at the planners as well.
Yeah, now, this is a different point he was making, but look, Dublin City Centre has not really recovered from COVID. And I love Dublin City Centre. I said, we have a business in here. I've worked in here for over 30 years. It is my city. There's a reason why tourists love it. It's a brilliant, brilliant place. But retail in particular has really suffered post-pandemic. There aren't as many people in the city because of remote working. It's got priorities. We need to get residences built above shops. There's enough space to address our housing crisis in unoccupied spaces above. We need to turn those into residential. We need to stimulate trade and business within the city centre, and we need to address transport. But I think the accusation is the City Council is so blinkered with its transport plan that it's putting more thought into bicycle lanes and buses than it is to the suffering economic heart of Dublin City. So I accept that the transport plan is important, but if you're not listening to the city centre businesses, in the name of God, why not? Who are you listening to?
Now, what was he saying, though, about the planning of the city?
Well, he said that corrupt planning he attributed to, but he said that the city centre has lost out to peripheral developments like Liffey Valley and Dundrum and others. And he said that essentially the DNA of those, they arise out of corrupt and poor planning going back. And look, that's a very big conversation. It is true that some horrendous planning decisions have been made in Dublin city centre historically, and some were nakedly corrupt.
And we know that one planner was actually given a jail sentence, which he managed to avoid.
Yeah.
There was one planner, but there was a lot more to be concerned about in the planning board than that one individual.
It's a sorry legacy, and it goes back 20, 30, 40 years, and it reflects no credit on Dublin City at all and elsewhere in the country. But look, you can't blame the recent turndown of Dublin city centre post-pandemic on those historic planning decisions. Maybe we're still suffering the consequences of them, but it's not what's new in Dublin City now. What's new is that post-pandemic work patterns have reduced the numbers of people physically in the city centre, so it's a quieter place than it used to be. Retail is taking a hammering, and Dublin city centre, thinking only of its transport plan, thinking bicycles and buses mean victory, seem to regard leaving, something of a retail desert behind them in Dublin city centre as a price worth paying. And, that's a debate you could have, but I'm convinced there isn't overwhelming public support for it.
Dublin City Council continue to quote high public support for their traffic plan, but this is based on a public consultation which is heavily promoted online by the pro-cycling groups. So they swamped the consultation. DCC should be required to have an independent poll to gauge accurately the level of support.
Well, they should want to know. They should want to know. You shouldn't be constructing research. That is, what's the old joke that people use research the way a drunk uses a lamppost, more for support than illumination.
Yeah. And this is a self-selecting sample.
Exactly. And why are they cherry-picking that to favour their policy? Do they not surely want to genuinely know? And if Dublin businesses are screaming their concerns, why would you not listen?
Dublin city centre businesses don't belong to a constituency. We have no elected representative. It'll be great when all the businesses close down in the city centre, as no one will need to go in anymore, totally solving the traffic problem.
Well, there you go. If you pursue the logic to its conclusion, there are some people who would literally call that victory. But I don't think the rest of us would. And certainly I don't think there's overwhelming support for it.
The transport plan is to discourage cars travelling through the city,
yes,
not cars travelling to the city. The car lobby, disguised as a retail lobby, chooses to ignore this. That's from Gordon.
Well, which am I then? This is a Monty Python scene.
No, the whole idea that to get through, people think you're going maybe from the south side of Dublin to the north side of Dublin. You might simply want to cross the Liffey with goods, like you're a plumber. You need to repair plumbing in a cafe on the north side, and you've just done a job on the cafe on the south side. You have a short journey to get across. How the hell do you get across?
Well, look, the logic behind it is that 60% more even, but about 60% of the traffic that is coming into Dublin city centre does not have a destination within the city centre. It's transiting through. That's the sort of look, we do have a massive transport problem, and Dublin City Council is right about that. A lot of those journeys are wasteful. Sometimes, in many cases, the physical presence of those vehicles inhibits the bus service, and there's tremendous logic to that. So that is also a problem that has to be faced. Dublin City has a huge transport challenge. This may be the solution. It may be a really important part of the solution. But as I say, transport is not the only problem that the city has, and the council surely should be aware of that.
In Cork, I'm told some bike lanes in Cork City are a death trap. You're driving and swinging left, and the bike lanes are on your left. Well, normally they are, aren't they?
Yeah, I use the Dublin ones a lot, and they are imperfect. Even shiny new ones that they've spent a fortune on. As a cyclist, I'd have plenty of criticisms, and some of them are just downright nuts. But it is good to have cycle lanes, and it's worth spending money on them.
A few more comments. It's nice, at least, that DCC is sending alerts out about new bus and cycle lane works they're doing. At least I know when the road is being ripped up for a change. That's from Dave in Clontarf. And Dave in Clontarf has been put through the ringer for the last couple of years with the work there.
Sure.
Cyclists don't obey the law. Delivery drivers and couriers break lights all the time. Why people don't admit this, I've no idea. Just sit on any junction and count how many break the lights. And the answer is loads. That's from John. Councillor Neil Ring has been on to us. Coming soon, the College Green Plaza. Dublin City Council does not care about the city centre economy or the threat to jobs in the city.
Yeah, well, look, that's the criticism, and I think it is incumbent on Dublin City Council to come out and, if you like, engage with those concerned voices rather than say they have overwhelming support. And it's not a surprise to me that we're hearing these voices now. Dublin City Council says, we did consultation a couple of years ago. Where were you then? That's not human nature. People become engaged when they see the direct effect that it's going to have. And a lot of people have looked with horror at what is supposed to be implemented, from next month. And as I say, the city centre traders are going, whoa,
this is
you'll
what they
wipe
do.
us out.
What they do is they do it in August when things are quiet, when there's no schools
Well,
and a lot of people are on holidays, they do it then and say, isn't it working wonderfully? And then September comes and it...
Well, as an engineer, Pat, if you're implementing, that's when you would do it.
Sure, I understand that's the best time because of the paucity of traffic. But it doesn't mean that it's going to solve the problem. If it works in August, doesn't mean it works in October.
Yeah, that's true. And look, to some extent, let me not be too cynical. This could work. It might be the case that they've got it right, or it might be that they can make specific adjustments. We know, for example, huge employers like Guinness's, for example, or Brown Thomas's.
Yeah, have they sorted that yet? How Guinness are going to get the porter down to the docks?
I'm told that they're engaged. What on earth that means, I do not know. But clearly, if you announce a policy like this, which no matter what you think about transport, is going to have huge amounts of collateral consequences for lots and lots of people in the city, you have to measure twice and count once.
Guinness tankers being driven down, the massive things down to the docks, straight line.
Yeah.
Imagine if they have to turn up into Broadstone or wherever. All those bends create more hazards for the cyclists, because a truck going straight is safer than a truck making perhaps an unsighted turn.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And look, we can achieve these things. By the way, you do it by by building infrastructure. I remember when the trucks on the North and South Quays formed a solid wall of steel going to and from the port that blocked the city up completely. Build a port tunnel, transform the city centre. So, it takes more to solve our transport problems than bus gates and bicycle lanes, or indeed than bus connects. We do need to build.